people? It is me, Cecilia. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're coming to you with a kind of more of a different video. I wanted to basically bring awareness to this issue because not a lot of people talk about it in Booktube, the Bookstagram, just the general book community never really talks about this. Even the environmental community doesn't talk about this, and I wanted to talk about books' impacts on the environment. Now, when I'm talking about this, I'm mainly talking about physical books, so like regular physical books, but we will talk about ebooks in this video. Just, it's going to be not as big or prevalent while I'm talking about this. I do want to give a disclaimer because I know people are going to come for me in the comments, so I just want to give a quick disclaimer. This video is in no way attacking anybody or judging anybody on how they spend their money or how to do anything like that. I'm coming from this from an environmental standpoint and how all of the books that we are buying affects the planet. I'm not telling you that you need to get rid of all your books. I'm not telling you that you need to stop buying books. I am just here to bring awareness to this issue because nobody is talking about this. Even researching this video was very difficult because there's not a lot of resources or studies about this in general. So I want to talk about this and maybe start some discussions with other people in our community. We are going to get into this. Is Booktube really killing the planet? Alrighty, so I did extensive research and I just want to let you guys know that there's not a lot of research on this topic, so I pretty much found anything that was going to be able to be found. So I have my laptop so I don't screw anything up or don't mess up any terminology, and I want to tell you guys the little stats. So there hasn't been a lot of surveys or studies done on the environmental impacts of books. The most comprehensive study that has been done happened in 2008. Environmental Trends and Climate Impacts Findings from the U.S. Book Industry. So this was the largest that's been done, and they haven't recreated it since then. And yes, I know 2008 was a long time ago. It was, what, 11 years ago? So, of course, not everything's going to be up to date, but you can see how bad the book industry was and still is, and I still wanted to go and talk about it. So this was published in March of 2008, and it was prepared by the Green Press Initiative and the Book Industry Study Group. Now, these two groups talk a lot about the sustainability in, of course, the publishing industry, and they do a lot of different studies, but this is the most comprehensive and the biggest one that they have done. So this study featured 76 publishers, 13 printers, and 6 paper mills. And trying to find the actual study was a bitch to find. A lot of it has been deleted from the internet, but I found one, and it's a long study, so I read it all just for you guys, but I came back and wanted to give you guys the comprehensive points because no one wants to hear me sit here and read the whole 82-page document. That's not interesting. So one of the biggest plot points was what's responsible for the biggest part of the book industry's carbon footprint. So I have some direct quotes that I want to share from you guys. Forest and forest harvest impacts with 62% share of total carbon emissions. Second is the paper mills with 22.4% share. And the paper consumed by the production of books is the main responsible for the industry's carbon footprint of 12.4 million metric tons or 8.85 pounds of carbon dioxide per book. So that was a lot of information all at once. So basically what it's saying is that the biggest bulk of the carbon footprint that the book industry puts out is from harvesting the trees, of course. One of the biggest things that I took away from this was the main responsible is the industry's carbon footprint of 12.4 million metric tons. And that's per year, which is insane. And so which averages out to about 8.85 pounds of carbon dioxide per book, which is literally insane. If you look at my bookshelf, I have about 77 books that I physically own. And when I do quick math, that makes about 681.45 pounds of carbon dioxide produced just from the books that I physically own. Now, I did do a survey on Twitter about a couple weeks ago because I wanted to get a lot of responses, and I got about like 253 responses. And thank you to everybody who participated in that little survey. But I basically asked how many books people physically owned. Some people didn't own any physical books, so their answer was 0. And some people owned, I think the largest amount that I saw was about 5,000. The average amount of books that people owned through this survey was about 465 books per person, which is insane. Of course, this isn't going to be comprehensive out of everybody, because I did take this from my Twitter, which is mostly a bookish Twitter, and everyone who replied is basically like in the book community. So of course, we're going to own more books than the average person. But if you take the average of 465 books, and you times that by how much carbon dioxide is produced per book, that makes about 4,115.25 pounds of carbon dioxide that has been produced from the books that they own, which is an insane amount. For context, a gallon of gas produces 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. That's like burning about 205 gallons of gas just by the books that you own. When I read the report, it seemed like it put a finger on many of the environmental issues associated with the life cycle of books. So transportation, energy consumption by the publishers and the retailers, of course, and the huge amount of books that get unsold. So in 2006, more than 1 billion books had been unsold, which is crazy. And they're either get done for pulping, which is when they remove the cover and all that stuff, and they return them back to the publisher, and they usually just reuse those for recycled materials, or they go into landfills or are burned, which is not good either. The amount that actually is pulped is a lot smaller than the amount that actually goes into landfills and is burned. It talks a lot about the sources of paper and if they're coming from endangered forest or not. So the sources of paper used for the U.S. book industry are all over the world. Paper is sourced from the U.S., Canada, parts of Asia, Europe. One of the main problems with the use of forests in these areas as a source of these paper is that many of the trees are cut down from endangered forest. So a lot of the trees aren't ethically cut down, which I don't know if there is truly an ethical reason. Which is a weird term, because is cutting down trees truly ethical? But that's a whole nother philosophical debate that we are not having today. These paper companies aren't really listening and are still cutting trees down in those areas. By cutting down trees in endangered forests, it does may bring severe damage to the biodiversity that are in those areas. So animals are losing their homes. Whole ecosystems need to get up and move, and of course some ecosystems can't move, so the ecosystems, the animals, the plants there end up dying because of the trees being cut down in those areas. The fundamental changes in the loss of natural systems in that area, and the severe impact of species. Some species get completely wiped out because of the trees being cut down in these endangered forests. Another thing that was talked about in this study was the increase in some post-consumer waste, or PCW paper. Post-consumer waste, or PCW, is paper made out of paper which has been used by the end consumer and then is collected for recycling from various recycling programs. So PCW is a lot of the paper that we throw out. So for cardboards, if I throw out my test, that would be considered PCW. Just the paper that we as consumers produce and we actually get recycled in the proper way. And then of course, if not all recycling actually gets recycled, some just go straight into landfills, some gets contaminated because people don't know how to recycle correctly, and that's a whole nother can of worms. But in the report, it is estimated that the percentage of recycled paper in books was 5% in 2006. But there were some indicators showing that number is a little conservative and the actual percent might be higher, but not too much higher. So 13 printers who took part in this survey reported an increase of the use of PCW recycled paper from about 2,000 short tons in 2004 to 19,000 short tons in 2006, which is a good jump. Also, the 6 mills that participated in the survey reported on increase in the recycled content from 2.4% in 2004 to 13.3% in 2006, which is also a better increase. So different things are getting done, which is very good. Now, some of the issues is that different companies aren't very transparent on what they want to do. When you go onto a publisher's website and you see their sustainability statement, a lot of the sustainability statements are very vague and aren't very helpful. They are very vague and they have kind of room for interpretation. So if they don't make that goal, no one really knows and no one holds them accountable for it. So only 11% of the companies that replied to the survey said that they have targets for limiting the sources of fiber from endangered forests. So only 11% are actually trying to not get their paper from endangered forests, which is concerning. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And only 14% have policies that advocate for the reduction of paper consumption in general. 14%, that's an F. I'm sorry, sweetie, that's an F. That's not good at all. The only good thing out of all this is that there is an increase of 54% have quantitative targets for the increased use of recycled paper, which is good. 54% is still an F, but it's better than what it could have been. So this survey is missing quite a bit of what I would like to see, that there is no reference to the growing ebook industry, which it did happen in 2006, so I can understand why it wouldn't per se. Also, this survey is relegated to just the US book industry. It doesn't talk anything about Europe or the entire international range, so I don't know if these numbers are similar to the rest of the world or not. And I couldn't find a survey that talked about any other part of the world. This 2006 study was alarming to me, at least while reading it, and there was just a lot of crazy statistics that I was just kind of unaware of, and that again nobody talks about. But of course, this was in 2006. So how has the whole book industry changed? Most updated kind of version of this was that in 2006, the same people who put on the survey created environmental trends. So they were doing this every 2 years. So the last one they uploaded or they released was 2016. I kept looking and I couldn't find a 2018 version. So I was just going by the 2016 one. So for the 2016 environmental trends, 11 publishers, 12 printers, and 9 manufacturers participated. But one of the most notable trends from the data in this survey was that there was a continued decline in the use of recycled fibers in book paper. So a direct quote from the survey says, "The most recent data shows that not only has a downward trend in recycled paper in book papers continued, but it has decreased at an accelerating rate, with average recycled content from participating manufacturers dropping from 22% recycled fiber in 2012 to just 12% in 2014. That is a big decline. That's 10% in 2 years of how much recycled fiber that they are using. And when they're not talking about recycled fiber, the rest of it is basically just like we're cutting down more trees and we're just using brand new materials. So when I'm talking about the next part, it's going to be talking a lot about FSC certified paper, and I figured I'd go over that really quickly. So FSC certified paper is paper that has been harvested in a responsible manner. So their acronym is for the Forest Stewardship Council, which is an independent, non-governmental, not-for-profit organization that was established to promote the responsible management of the world's forest. So all of this paper is basically harvested at different places that the FSC has certified that it is okay to use paper from. The percentage of book papers that are certified by the FSC has decreased for the first time since 2006. In total, when considering all types of certification, even from different companies or different organizations that were not FSC, there was a dramatic decrease from 2012 to 2014. Book paper that were certified by any certification system decreased from 81% in 2010 to 47%. That is insane. That is a big percentage. So this paper is not being harvested in a responsible or ethical manner. This trend really contradicts what the expectations of the publishers and printers were. The publishers and the printers, most of whom expected to use the same amount or more recycled and certified fiber or paper in the future, but the data isn't adding up to that. The data is showing that there is a significant decrease. So Are the publishers and the printers lying about if they truly want to actually use more recycled paper and fibers, or more certified papers and fibers as well? That's icky to me. That doesn't make me feel good. As you see from the difference between 2006 and 2016, there has been some improvement, but not enough. These numbers are frankly unacceptable to me. All right, let's talk about ebooks. So I have a Kindle. Of course, Kindle isn't the only e-reader that you can get. There are Kobo, Rabukin. There's different other ones, but this is the one that I have. It is the Kindle Fire. I got this last year, and it's great. But I wanted to talk about ebooks and the role that they play. And there's been some debate on if ebooks truly are more environmentally friendly than regular books. And I wanted to talk about that since we're talking about the environmental impact of books. As a direct quote from this article, Kindle versus the New York Times, talking about how much a Kindle book saves compared to a regular physical book. The Kindle therefore saves 6,500 mj and 690 kilograms of CO2 a year. So switching to an ebook would be like saving 50 gallons of energy and 78 gallons of CO2 emissions a year. That is crazy. So just by switching to a Kindle, you could save 78 gallons of CO2 or 50 gallons of energy. You need to read about 22 to 30 books on an e-reader in order to basically catch up to its carbon footprint. In order to basically make it worth it in carbon footprint wise. Once you start reading more than that, then you are just reducing all of your emissions. Now, of course, if you only read 5 books a year, it might take a while. For e-readers, I know that my last Kindle, I had the first Kindle edition, which I got in Christmas of 2012, and it lasted me till last year, so it lasted me about 6 years. And I read probably more than 50 books on that thing, and it was great, and I definitely got my use out of that one. So as long as you read 30 plus books, at least as long as you read 30 books on your Kindle or your e-reader, you will be reducing your carbon footprint, which I think is great.
Editing me here, I just wanted to clarify a little bit. I didn't really talk about getting used products. So if you buy a Kindle or a different e-reader used, you won't have any carbon emissions to kind of basically erase. Your carbon footprint in that way is going to start off to zero, and you're only going to be reducing. So if you are able to get a Kindle for either from a friend who doesn't want theirs anymore, or on apps like Letgo, eBay, whatever like that, or you can even get used Kindles on Amazon, then you are only saving the planet even a little bit more.
Now you're probably wondering, okay, but what can I do about this? Is there a way that us as consumers can do this? Now I've come up with a bunch of different ways that we as book lovers can still enjoy our books, but can still reduce our impact and just be more eco-friendly in the process. Now, I made sure to do a bunch of different options that should work with even people who live in the US, people who live internationally, or whether you have a lot of money or no money at all. These tips, at least everybody can do at least one tip. So the first tip, and probably the easiest tip, is to buy less books. When I was looking, I had asked a couple people on Twitter how often or how many books do they regularly buy a month, and a lot of people said at like 10 books a month. So a good way in order to just reduce our imprint is to just buy less books. It would save us money, and we won't have to. It'll save us money, it'll save us space on our shelves, and it'll reduce the environmental impact. It's great all around. Maybe just buy less books, or be more selective on the books that you do buy. Number 2 is buy used books. Now, when you buy something used, you are getting more bang for your buck, but also you are not creating any extra waste by buying used books. You're doing something great. You are preventing that book from maybe ending up in a landfill. and it's always great to do that. I do have some resources for if you want to buy used books: library, book sales, charity shops, thrift stores, used bookstores like Half Price Books or different options. I have a couple online links, like thriftbooks.com is a personal favorite of mine. They do new books, but they also do used books. You just select the books you want and you can select your editions, but this is only, I believe, centered for the US. For international audiences, you can use betterworldbooks.com. They are set up similar to Book Depository, but they also include used books, and a lot of their proceeds do go to really awesome charities. So I think that they are a really great company as well. Third option is something that we've already talked about a little bit, is ebooks and audiobooks. Now, of course, if it's electronically, you're not creating any extra waste in that way, especially with audiobooks. It's even better. I will have a few links down below of different websites that are great resources. Like Audible is great for audiobooks. Scribd, there has been some little controversy, but Scribd is always a good option for ebooks and audiobooks alike. Libro.fm is a great place for audiobooks, and it's also great because you can select a used bookstore that you want your proceeds to benefit. So you are getting that audiobook, but you're also benefiting your local community. I always like to benefit the Doc Bookshop, which is a local bookshop here in Fort Worth. And they specialize in African American literature, and they have open mic nights that I like to go to on Tuesday nights, and it's always really fun. I've actually performed at one of their open mic nights, which was amazing. I really love that experience. But you can do that, you can select as many as you want, but I will have a link down below. I'll have a regular link and a link for if you want to support the Doc Bookshop. Why not? You can also just use different services like the Kindle app. I personally don't like to support Amazon, so I don't buy Kindle books, but I have a Kindle e-reader just because I don't want to buy a new one at the moment. You can also support Kobo, which is like independently, which is ebooks for independent shops. Like, you know, like you would buy a book from an independent bookstore, it's like that, but for ebooks. Number 4 is the library. Now, the library is an amazing resource, and I know that it's not a lot of people do not have access to the library, but if you do, I highly suggest it. I know that in the United States, you can get non-resident library cards. Now, some of those library cards do cost money, like the one in my local library, I believe it costs $50 a year to get one of those, but some are free, and you can get library books and library card for that library in order to access their electronic collection, but of course accessing their physical collection as well. I get around 42 to 50% of all of the books I read from the library in some format, either electronically or physically, and there's just many great resources. I've done so many things. My library has a 3D printer. It's great. Like, libraries are a great resource, and we need to use them more. And of course, you can use apps like Libby Overdrive to get your ebooks and your audiobooks. Now, my last tip, if none of these other tips work for you, support your small businesses and ethically or eco-friendly publishers. Now, when I say support small businesses, if you are going to buy a new book, try to not buy it from the Barnes & Nobles or the Amazons. Try to buy them from your local mom and pop shop that is an independent bookstore. Sometimes it's a little more expensive, but you know that your money is going to a good cause. It's going to help that bookstore, while in other places you don't know where your money is going. For eco-friendly publishers, I'm thinking of eventually doing a video talking about the publishers that are actually making strides in the publishing world, publishers that I want to personally support because they are doing amazing strides environmentally. And I will probably make that another video towards the end of the month, maybe next month, and if you guys want that video, just let me know down below. But supporting them, you can always look on their websites online. I know of a couple off the top of my head, like Penguin Publishing is doing some really great stuff environmentally, and it's great. So if you can, support those companies as well. But yes, those are my different options of what you guys can do. If you have more options of how to reduce your environmental impact while still enjoying books, of course we're all book lovers, we all want to enjoy books, then leave them down below. I would love to have a great discussion with you guys about this topic in general. And that's the video for today, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and if you want to see more content like this from me, just let me know. I always love to make it. It's just so fun to research and to just make this video, so I hope you guys enjoy this. I will see you in another video. Goodbye.